The stars were cold and silent above the fleet of Valax ships. From a distance, they looked like tiny sparks against the dark void, floating in perfect formation. Inside the lead ship, Commander Rylus of the Valaxian Empire watched Earth's blue glow on his screen. He smiled with a mix of triumph and arrogance. "They are weak," he muttered. "They will surrender when they see us." Back on Earth, in the orbital station orbiting the planet, humans prepared for what the Valax believed would be an easy conquest. Humanity's defenses were nothing like the vast fleets of the Valax. A few orbital guns, small interceptors, and automated drones. For the Valax, it was laughable. For humans, it was all they had. Captain Alara Brooks stared at the approaching fleet on her monitor. She didn't speak at first. The hum of the station's engines filled the control room. Then slowly she said, "They don't know us." Yet, her crew exchanged uncertain looks. The tension was almost visible, like the air itself had thickened. Meanwhile, on the Valax lead ship, Rylus prepared the invasion protocol. His crew was ready and their confidence was unshakable. The humans would panic. They would beg for mercy. The Valax had never met a species that could survive for centuries in harsh conditions like Earth. The human species had evolved under threats, hunger and survival against impossible odds. But Rylus didn't care. He assumed survival meant weakness. The first probes entered Earth's atmosphere. Within minutes, they were met with silence. No alarm, no panic, no surrender. Rylus frowned. "Why, aren't they reacting?" he asked his science officer. The officer hesitated. "Commander, sensors show unusual activity. Their defense grids are activating faster than predicted." Alara watched the Valax probes explode one by one. Small, simple Earth drones, barely noticeable against the massive alien ships, were already in position. Humans had learned from history. Always prepare, always anticipate. And now, they were turning the enemy's arrogance into their trap. The Valax commander growled, "Bring the destroyers in!" Massive ships moved forward, weapons primed. But every time they fired, Earth's countermeasures neutralized the attack almost instantly. The humans weren't just surviving, they were predicting. Every pattern the Valax used, every strategy had been studied, anticipated, and countered. On the ground, people watched the skies with wide eyes. Not fear, but determination. Scientists, engineers, pilots, even soldiers, all working in perfect synchronization. Alara coordinated the defense from the station, giving precise instructions. Her voice was calm, but inside her heart raced. Humanity had a chance, a small one, but it was enough. The Valax, confused and enraged, called for reinforcements. More ships poured from the dark reaches of space, their weapons blazing. The humans had limited time. Alara initiated a risky maneuver. She ordered small, near-suicidal interceptors to lure the largest ships into narrow space corridors. The Valax followed, assuming the humans would be destroyed. They weren't. When the aliens reached the corridors, hidden Earth stations fired. Not enough to destroy, but enough to disable engines, jam weapons, and create chaos. Ships collided, alarms blared, and the Valax formation broke apart. Rylus could barely comprehend the disaster unfolding. How could such a small, primitive species cause so much destruction? Back on the station, Alara smiled grimly. "They underestimated us," she whispered. Her crew nodded. Humanity had always faced impossible odds and somehow always survived. This was just another test, and for the first time in millennia, the Valax were learning a harsh truth. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was power. As the Valax retreated to regroup, they left a trail of wreckage in orbit. The humans watched silently. There were no celebrations yet. They knew the real battle had only begun. But in that moment, something had changed. The Valax, the mighty conquerors of countless worlds, had tasted defeat at the hands of humans. And humanity had only begun to show what it was capable of. The Valax fleet limped away, broken but not defeated. Commander Rylus seethed as he watched the retreat on his screen. His pride had blinded him, and now he faced a species he had dismissed. "They fight like predators," he growled, "but they are clever. Too clever." Far below, Earth's cities glimmered in the night. Humanity was alive, and for a moment they allowed themselves relief. But Captain Alara Brooks knew better. She paced the station's bridge, eyes scanning the star maps. "They will return," she said softly. Her words were not fear, they were warning. Humans always planned for the worst. The first wave had been a test. The Valax had wanted to measure humanity's defenses, to see if Earth's defenses were as weak as their intelligence suggested. They had underestimated the resolve, the coordination, the unpredictability, and now they were regrouping, planning a counterattack more devastating than the first. Ilara called her chief strategist, Dr. Malik, to her side. "What are their likely moves?" she asked. Malik's fingers danced over the console, pulling simulations faster than most could think. "They will return with larger ships, but their approach will be cautious. They will try to exploit human weaknesses, look for blind spots, and they will bring their shadow units." "Shadow units?" Ilara frowned. Malik nodded gravely. "Elite squads. Highly advanced stealth vessels capable of cloaking, infiltration, and sabotage. They don't just destroy, they destabilize, manipulate, and terrify. If they succeed, even our strongest defenses could fail." Ilara's heart tightened. She had faced crises before, but the idea of invisible enemies in orbit, unseen yet deadly, was terrifying. Yet she forced herself to stay calm. "Then we prepare. Double the patrols, reinforce every vulnerable point, and set traps. They will see that humanity is not just reactive. We can predict and we can fight back." On the outskirts of the solar system, Rylus studied Earth with cold eyes. "Send the shadows," he ordered. His voice had a chill no human could match. "I want their systems destabilized before the fleet returns. They think they are clever. Let us show them the darkness." The shadow units moved like ghosts through space. Sleek, black, almost invisible against the stars, they slipped past human sensors. Within hours, they reached the outskirts of Earth's orbital defenses. Their mission: sabotage the stations, cut communications, disable interceptors, and create chaos. But the humans had learned. Ilara had anticipated the shadows. Hidden sensors, coded patterns, and redundant systems were waiting. The shadow units crept into the sensor range, expecting nothing. Instead, alarms screamed through the station. Ilara's voice rang out calmly. "They are here. Engage the countermeasures." Automated drones flared to life, interceptors scrambled, and plasma nets activated in space. The shadow units found themselves trapped in invisible grids of energy. For every step they took, humans had already predicted it. Rylus' face twisted in disbelief. "Impossible. How can they know?" Ilara smiled grimly as she watched the shadow unit struggle. Humans had always survived by turning disadvantages into strengths. Every challenge became a lesson, every threat a chance to adapt. The shadows, meant to instill fear and chaos, were now tangled in human strategy, but victory was not yet complete. In orbit, the shadows were only the beginning. Rylus had a deeper plan, one that even Ilara could not yet see. Hidden fleets, unknown weapons, and a command structure that humanity had never encountered awaited in the darkness of space. The Valax were patient. They learned quickly and they adapted, and soon Earth would face something far beyond anything it had imagined. On the station, humans worked tirelessly. Pilots flew dangerous sorties, engineers repaired systems in record time, and scientists monitored alien patterns. Ilara coordinated everything with precision, her calm presence a beacon of focus for the crew. They were tired, stressed, but determined. The Valax believed humans were weak. That belief was about to be shattered again. Meanwhile, whispers of the humans' victories spread across Earth. Cities lit in celebration, but the mood was cautious. No one took the enemy lightly. Humanity had survived the first wave, defeated the shadows, and outsmarted a fleet. But the real test was coming, and everyone knew it. The skies above would not remain silent for long. Rylus stared into the void, planning, waiting. "They are strong," he admitted reluctantly. "But strength can be broken. Fear can be sown. And when the time comes, humanity will learn that even power has its limits." Ilara, on the other hand, knew one truth. Humans had faced impossible odds before, and they would do it again. Strength, cunning, and courage were not weapons they needed to build. They were part of who they were. And the universe was about to witness what humanity could do when cornered, challenged, and underestimated. The first clash was over, but the war was just beginning. Somewhere in the darkness of space, the shadows of the Valax stirred, ready to strike, and Earth waited, prepared to show the universe a lesson in power it would never forget. The night sky over Earth shimmered with strange lights as the Valax fleet reappeared. This time, it was not just a few ships or stealth units, it was a full-scale invasion. Massive vessels, bristling with weapons, moved like predators closing in on prey. Commander Rylus's face was a mask of confidence, but behind it, worry crept in. Humanity had survived the first wave. Could they survive this? Captain Alara Brooks stood on the bridge, staring at the approaching armada. Her crew was tense but ready. Years of preparation, countless simulations, and every ounce of ingenuity humanity could muster had led to this moment. They believe they can crush us, Alara said softly, but they haven't seen the human way of war. The first wave of Valax bombers entered Earth's atmosphere. Explosions flared in orbit as interceptors engaged them, but Alara knew they could not stop everything. She activated the hidden orbital arrays, long-range energy weapons disguised as debris fields. The human response was precise, surgical, and devastating. Ships exploded mid-flight. The Valax formation broke and chaos rippled through their ranks. Rylus bellowed orders. "Target the stations! Destroy their command! Nothing can stand in our way." His fleet pushed harder, but every attack was countered before it could land. Humanity had learned from the first wave. Each strike had a counter-strike waiting, each trap a hidden surprise. On the surface, civilians watched the skies with a mix of fear and awe. They knew humanity's fate hung in the balance, but hope burned bright. Engineers and pilots worked in shifts, repairing damage and repositioning defenses. Every move was calculated, every decision critical. The humans had no choice but to be clever, and they were proving that they were unmatched at it. Alara focused on the shadow units. Though some had been neutralized earlier, others had infiltrated deep into orbit. She gave orders with precision. Deploy the counter-sabotage drones. Track their energy signatures. Don't let one ship go undetected. The crew executed flawlessly, weaving a web of defenses that the Valax could not anticipate. Rylus's frustration grew. His ships, the pride of the Valax Empire, were falling like leaves in a storm. How could a species so primitive fight with such skill? He turned to his tactical officer. "What are we missing?" "Every plan fails." The officer swallowed hard. "They anticipate us. They adapt faster than we can strike." The humans, however, were not simply defending. They were striking. Small teams of interceptors carried out daring maneuvers, hitting weak points in the Valax ships. Explosions rippled through the enemy fleet, sending massive vessels tumbling into space. Every victory was small, calculated, but together they built a momentum that even the Valax could not ignore. In the chaos, Alara spotted a massive Valax battleship preparing a direct assault on the orbital station. Its weapons were enormous, designed to obliterate everything in its path. Without hesitation, she ordered the station's energy cannons to fire. The beam struck the battleship, cutting through its shields. For a moment, the humans held their breath. The ship faltered, sparks flying along its hull. Rylus roared in anger. "This is impossible. How can they hold against us?" His pride, once unshakable, began to crack. Every attack was countered. Every strategy met with human cunning. It was not brute force, it was intelligence, coordination, and a willingness to risk everything to survive. Meanwhile, smaller Valax ships attempted flanking maneuvers, trying to bypass human defenses. But humans had anticipated these moves. Hidden drone swarms intercepted the attackers, exploding in precise patterns that disabled multiple vessels at once. It was a symphony of destruction, carefully orchestrated by human hands. Amid the battle, Alara received a warning signal. A Valax command ship, larger than anything she had seen, was approaching from the outer orbit. Its energy readings were immense. If it reached the station, it could wipe out everything. She clenched her fists. "We stop it here. No retreat. No surrender." The station's cannons fired again, and the human interceptors raced toward the command ship. Missiles streaked through space. Energy beams cut through shields, and for the first time the Valax felt real fear. They had underestimated humanity. They had assumed survival meant weakness. They were wrong. Humanity fought with strength, with courage, and with a strategy born of countless struggles and impossible odds. The command ship faltered. Fires broke out along its hull. Rylus stared at the chaos unfolding, disbelief written across his face. "This cannot be. Humans? How?" Alara watched quietly as the massive ship tumbled, explosions lighting the void. She knew this was only the beginning. The Valax fleet was not yet defeated, but humanity had sent a clear message. They were not prey. They were predators in their own right. The battle was far from over. Yet in this moment, humans had proven something the Valax could not ignore. Power was not just about size, numbers, or weapons. It was about courage, intelligence, and the will to survive, and humanity had all of it. The ruins of the Valax command ship drifted silently in orbit. Captain Alara Brooks and her crew took no time to celebrate. They knew the battle was far from over. Across the stars, the main Valax fleet gathered, larger and more organized than ever. There was a new threat looming, one that had remained hidden until now. Commander Rylus was furious. His pride had been wounded, but his mind worked faster than ever. Humanity had survived their first strikes, outsmarted the shadow units, and destroyed a massive battleship. Now it was time to unleash the weapon the Valax had never revealed, the Eclipse Array, a devastating device capable of neutralizing all planetary defenses in minutes. In a secret Valax ship, Rylus activated the array. It unfolded like a black sun, its energy humming through space. Even distant stars seemed to pale under its power. "Target Earth," Rylus commanded. "Let them see what happens when weakness meets true power." Back on the station, sensors detected the new energy surge. Dr. Malik's face went pale as he analyzed the readings. "Captain, this is unlike anything we've seen. If it reaches Earth's atmosphere, every orbital weapon, every shield, every interceptor gone. We have minutes, maybe less." Ilara's jaw tightened. "Then we fight smart. We can't stop it with brute force. We have to think differently." She activated the station's emergency protocols and sent a silent alert to Earth's defense networks. Engineers scrambled, recalculating energy outputs, repositioning satellites, and preparing small strike teams for a mission that seemed almost impossible. In orbit, the Eclipse Array glowed brighter, its hum growing into a roar that vibrated through every metal surface. Humanity had never faced anything like it. Entire fleets could vanish in moments. The humans knew this was their greatest test. Yet fear was useless. Courage, precision, and strategy were their only weapons. Ilara ordered small strike crafts to approach the array. They were fragile, tiny compared to the massive Valax vessel, but they carried specialized EMP warheads designed to disrupt energy fields. Pilots gritted their teeth as they raced toward what could easily be their end. Every movement was calculated, every second counted. The Valax noticed immediately. "Intercept them!" Rylus shouted, but the strike crafts moved faster than expected. Humans had anticipated the defensive patterns of the array's guards. Missiles dodged, lasers missed, and tiny crafts closed in on the black sun of energy. Inside one craft, Lieutenant Han adjusted the targeting sequence. "Ready? In 3, 2, 1, the EMP warhead released." A pulse spread through the array, lights flickering as systems strained under the sudden disruption. For the first time, the massive weapon stuttered, losing coherence. Rylus's fury reached its peak. How can they fight this?" Every calculated step of his plan was failing. He had underestimated humanity again, this species that thrived in the impossible. On the station, Ilara coordinated every move with precision. "Focus on their shields. Predict the pulse backflow. Keep their weapons offline while our strike teams finish their runs." Her calm voice inspired the crew, giving them focus even when the odds seemed hopeless. The human pilots executed daring maneuvers. One after another, EMP charges hit the array, each pulse weakening it further. Sparks exploded, alarms blared in the Valax ship, and systems failed in a cascade. The black sun of energy flickered like a dying star. Yet Rylus had one more surprise. Hidden in the depths of the array, he had placed self-defense drones heavily armed and near impossible to detect. They surged toward the strike crafts with deadly precision. Several pilots were hit, explosions blooming in the void, but the humans pressed forward. Courage and sacrifice drove them. They could not fail. Earth depended on it. Ilara gritted her teeth as she watched the chaos unfold. She could not control every ship, every pilot, every explosion, but she could inspire, guide, and predict. Humanity had always survived by turning adversity into advantage. And now, they were about to do it again. With one final coordinated strike, the array faltered. The massive black sun of energy collapsed, sending shockwaves through space. Valax ships tumbled, systems overloaded, and alarms rang endlessly. For the first time, the Valax fleet felt true fear. Their weapon of ultimate destruction had failed. Rylus stared at the remnants of the array, disbelief and rage warring on his face. He had underestimated humanity's ingenuity, courage, and sheer refusal to accept defeat. Every strike, every move, every tiny calculation by humans had undone his greatest plan. On the station, humans watched the destruction. Silence filled the bridge for a moment before cheers erupted. Not because the battle was over, they knew the Valax would return, but because humanity had faced annihilation and survived against impossible odds. Ilara allowed herself a small smile. They thought we were weak. They thought fear would control us. But humanity never surrenders. And across the stars, the Valax learned a lesson they would not forget. The remnants of the Valax fleet fled into the darkness of deep space, but Commander Rylas's mind was far from defeated. He had survived the collapse of the Eclipse Array, yet the sting of human defiance burned like fire. They have survived. Again, he muttered. But no species can withstand my final gambit. In the hidden depths of the Valax Armada, massive ships emerged from stealth, their hulls bristling with new weapons. Rylas had called it the Obsidian Strike, a fleet designed to obliterate anything in its path and crush human morale before it could resist. Every weapon had been engineered for one purpose: dominance. Back on Earth, Captain Ilara Brooke sensed a shift in the readings. "They're regrouping," she said calmly, though her eyes betrayed the tension. Her crew leaned over consoles, trying to track the approaching threat. "This time, it's different. They've learned from their mistakes." Dr. Malik analyzed the fleet. "They're faster, stronger, and more coordinated. If we face them head-on, we could lose everything." His voice carried both warning and fear, but Ilara's response was steady. "Then we don't face them head-on. We fight smart like we always do." The humans initiated a plan that was risky even by their standards. Small, agile strike teams would harass the fleet, drawing attention and splitting their formation. Meanwhile, hidden orbital stations and automated drones would prepare ambushes at precise locations. Timing had to be perfect. Mistakes could mean annihilation. The Obsidian Strike fleet moved like a black tide, massive ships blotting out starlight, weapons glowing with deadly intent. Rylas watched the sensors, confident that the humans could not match this power. But every time a strike craft appeared, evading with precise maneuvers, he felt a spark of doubt. Humanity's ability to adapt was terrifying. On the station, Ilara coordinated the assault with ruthless precision. "Deploy the decoys," she ordered. "Lead them into the nebula field. Keep our real forces hidden until they are vulnerable." The crew moved quickly, each action practiced and refined over countless simulations. The Valax took the bait. Their ships plunged into the dense nebula, hoping to crush the humans waiting in ambush. But the humans had predicted the environmental hazards and turned them into weapons. Hidden plasma arrays activated, striking ships at weak points. The fleet staggered, alarms screaming as one massive vessel after another was disabled. Rylas's fury was beyond words. How do they anticipate every move?" he shouted. His officers, once confident, now hesitated. Every strategy, every calculation seemed flawed in the face of human ingenuity. The humans were not just defending, they were dictating the battle. Strike teams darted between massive ships, targeting engines, weapons, and communication arrays. Explosions lit up the nebula, debris drifting in slow, deadly arcs. Every attack was precise, every maneuver deliberate, yet the Valax were relentless. Hidden weapons on their remaining vessels activated, energy beams slicing through space. Several human strike crafts were destroyed, and the orbital stations shuddered under sudden blasts. The humans were tested to their limits. Failure seemed possible, but surrender was never an option. Ilara watched a massive Valax dreadnought preparing to fire a devastating weapon. "If it hits, the station is gone," she whispered. She thought quickly, rerouting energy to shield arrays and calculating an interception path for a strike craft loaded with an experimental energy disruptor. "Now, Han," she commanded. Lieutenant Han dove toward the dreadnought, weaving through laser fire and debris. He released the energy disruptor and a pulse spread across the ship's hull. The dreadnought shuddered violently, systems failing one by one. Humanity had done the impossible. They had neutralized a weapon meant to annihilate them. Rylas's frustration boiled over. "Impossible! They should be defeated. Every species is defeated eventually." But humanity was not any species. Humans had survived famine, war, and cosmic disasters. They thrived when cornered, adapted when challenged, and fought with a combination of courage and ingenuity no enemy could predict. The Valax fleet began to falter. Ships collided in confusion, communication lines failed, and morale plummeted. Humans pressed the advantage, exploiting every weakness, every hesitation. By the time the Obsidian strike reached the inner orbit, it was already a broken force. Alara allowed herself a moment to breathe, but only for a moment. "They will regroup," she said, "and we will be ready." Her crew nodded, understanding the truth. Victory was temporary. But every battle won brought humanity closer to proving what they already knew. They were not to be underestimated. And somewhere across the stars, Commander Rylus learned a bitter truth. Humanity was not weak. Humanity did not beg for mercy. Humanity fought, and the universe had never seen anything like it. The stars themselves seemed to tremble as the final Valax fleet approached. Commander Rylus's pride had been shattered multiple times, yet he refused to accept defeat. The humans had survived wave after wave, outsmarted his shadow units, destroyed the Eclipse Array, and broken the Obsidian strike. Now the full weight of his empire stood ready to crush them once and for all. Captain Alara Brooks stared at the approaching armada from the station's bridge. Her crew worked tirelessly, but her mind raced ahead, calculating, predicting, preparing. She had faced impossible odds before, yet this battle would test humanity in ways no one had imagined. "They believe fear will control us," she whispered. "But they haven't seen what humans can do when cornered." The Valax unleashed their assault immediately. Massive warships fired, energy beams carved paths through orbit, and swarms of strike drones attacked relentlessly. For a moment, chaos filled the human stations. Alarms blared, and crew members scrambled to maintain shields and defenses. But humanity had one advantage the Valax could never anticipate: ingenuity born of survival. Alara activated a series of countermeasures that had never been tested in combat. Holographic decoys, hidden drone swarms, and redirected energy pulses created confusion among the alien fleet. For every attack the Valax launched, humans had a counter ready. Rylus' rage boiled over. "This is impossible! Every strike fails! Every plan fails!" Yet every failure fueled the humans' determination. They were not merely defending, they were rewriting the rules of war. In the chaos, Alara directed small teams of strike crafts to infiltrate the Valax motherships. Using cloaked approaches and precise energy disruptors, they disabled weapons and communications. Ships that had seemed invincible were falling one by one. The Valax, once so confident, now faced a species they could neither intimidate nor predict. On Earth, people watched the skies. This was not mere spectacle. They were witnessing humanity fighting not just for survival, but for the right to exist unbowed. Engineers, scientists, pilots, and soldiers worked in perfect synchronization. Every act of bravery, every calculated risk, every spark of human courage combined to form an unstoppable force. Rylus realized that brute strength alone could not win this war. He deployed the fleet's most feared weapon, the Dark Singularity, a device capable of consuming entire planetary systems. Its immense gravity began to distort space, drawing debris, ships, and even energy beams toward its heart. Alara's mind raced. Conventional weapons could not stop it, but humans never relied on brute force alone. "We'll use the Singularity against them," she commanded. Her crew's eyes widened in understanding. Using a combination of gravitational manipulations, energy pulses, and precise timing, they could redirect the Singularity's pull toward the Valax fleet. Strike crafts darted into position, narrowly avoiding the Singularity's deadly gravity. Coordinated energy blast created channels, guiding the massive force toward the enemy. One by one, Valax ships were drawn into the collapsing energy vortex, their massive hulls crushed or disabled. Chaos reigned, but humans moved with purpose amidst the destruction. Rylus watched in disbelief as his mighty fleet disintegrated, unable to resist the human strategy. His empire, feared across countless star systems, was crumbling, not through overwhelming force but through human ingenuity, courage, and resilience. Finally, only his flagship remained. Alara targeted it with the station's energy cannons and the combined firepower of the remaining strike crafts. The beams struck with precision, overwhelming shields and engines. The massive ship faltered, sparks flying across its hull. Rylus knew defeat had come. His empire could not withstand humanity's combination of strategy, courage, and relentless willpower. With one final roar of rage, he ordered retreat, leaving the stars around Earth littered with the wreckage of his once feared fleet. Silence fell across the bridge. Humans stared at the void, exhausted but unbowed. They had faced annihilation and emerged victorious. Captain Alara Brooks allowed herself a small, tired smile. They thought humanity would show pity, she whispered. Instead, we showed power. Across Earth, people cheered. Humanity had survived not because of size, numbers, or advanced weapons, but because of something far greater: courage, ingenuity, and an unbreakable will. The Valax had learned a lesson that would echo across the galaxy. Underestimate humans and you face a force unlike any other. And in that moment, humanity's place in the stars was no longer questioned. They were not prey. They were not weak. They were power itself, unyielding, unpredictable, and unstoppable. The battle was over, but the story of humanity had only begun.